Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Velero community meeting / open discussion. Today is November 2nd, 2021. We're nearing the end of 2021, but we still have a little ways to go. If you want to add yourself to the attendee list here, that would be super awesome. We're going to go through some status updates, and then if you have any discussion topics that you want to bring up, please raise them here. I know we had some discussions yesterday that we might want to bring up here, or we might want to bring up next week as well. But yeah, first off, some status updates from me. I want to welcome Abigail McCarthy back from parental leave. Super happy to have you back, Abby.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back.
Congrats.
Congratulations and welcome back.
Super happy to have you back. Yeah, I heard a baby. Awesome. Yeah, super happy to have you back, Abby. It's going to be great to have you here and help out with all the technical documentation again. So thank you for being here. The next item is something that was brought up yesterday. We had an internal call, and apparently when I set up the community meeting for the Beijing time zone community meeting, or the Beijing time zone focused community meeting, I set it up in Eastern US time and just added it as the Beijing time zone. So I will change out that community meeting because it should follow the Beijing time zone. So it shouldn't be affected by our daylight savings times or anything like that. So I'll update that and send out an updated invite to the mailing list later today. So you should all get that. So if you're in the US, the meeting will be 1 hour earlier than usual, starting next week. Any questions? All right. Next up, we have Dave.
Yeah. I clicked the button. I swear I clicked the button. So last week I was on community support, so went through a few of those. I don't think there's anything terribly exciting there. We're going to be updating the support rotation with Ming and Bruce being added to that. And I'm going to drop out of support for a while. And then also just continuing on with the upload progress, the project that never ends, and working towards testing out, making sure everything works there. And we're working on getting the item snapshot or reviews done and merged, and then I can start merging the rest of the code.
Awesome. Any questions or comments here? All right, thanks, Dave. Next up, Bridget.
Hi, everyone. So last week I felt like I spent quite a lot of it catching up after PTO, but in the middle of all that, I've been working on the Astrolabe CRD design with Dave. So we know we're going to be eventually kind of integrating that into Velero more as part of the data movement. So this is kind of some of the groundwork for that. I also had a sync meeting with Fong last week to chat about plugin versioning. So we've got some kind of follow-up steps and things that we're going to be doing as part of that. So we're going to be working on primarily doing like reviews and getting testing in place. So unit testing, integration testing, and then we'll try and get the branch with that work set up for to run on some of the internal kind of testing pipelines that we have to make sure that we're not breaking any existing functionality. That's something we definitely want to avoid. Then, like Dave mentioned, we need to like his upload progress PRs and things are outstanding. So there's that, and then quite a few other PRs, design docs and so on that I really want to try and get reviewed this week. So that's going to be a focus of mine as well, to try and get those things closed and get them in. So hopefully a lot to keep me busy. That's it from me.
Awesome, thank you. The CRD design, is that something that's in the design repo yet? Or,
no, it's not. It's still kind of early days for that. But once it's in place, it will it'll be obviously put for review and so on.
Yeah, that'll probably go into the Astrolabe repo.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Fantastic. Any questions for Bridget? All right. I'm gonna move into discussion topics, and I'll switch things around here. I'm gonna go with Jesse first.
Sorry about that. More used to the Google Meet keyboard shortcuts than the Zoom. I am from CloudBees. I'm here because we have customers who are very interested in cross-region restores, particularly on AWS, which is something I know is not currently supported. I've been playing with this some, and I put together kind of a proof of concept pull request that is contained in the AWS plugin specific to EBS, so it doesn't apply to other kinds of volumes, but just for EBS. And that seems to work, but that basically does snapshot replication between regions, and then it builds on another open pull request in that plugin that did metadata rewrites of the volumes to annotate them with the correct zone. So I just extended that to annotate it with the right region as well. And there's some other miscellaneous changes in there to fix some other problems I noticed at scale on AWS for things like API retry requests and things like that. So, and this also is only practical with a lot of volumes. If you also run with a core patch, which I did, that basically parallelizes all of the volume snapshotter plugins. Because one of the things I found was that the interface for the volume snapshotter basically gets called once per persistent volume, and it's a blocking method call that has to return before the next volume will be considered. And because of the specific behavior of the EBS snapshot API, you cannot initiate the copy to the other region until the snapshot in the origin region completes. And this takes 2 minutes and 40 seconds, regardless of size of snapshot, something weird in Amazon that I don't understand. So basically the upshot is that it works fine if you parallelize them, but if you try to run them in serial, then after you get more than a few volumes, then the backup just becomes unusably slow. So between the two of those, I have something that seems to work. I wouldn't call it production grade code or anything. Those PRs are currently closed, and there was a comment that this is something that's on the backlog or being planned for some future version of Velero, but I couldn't get information about what specifically was planned here or what form that would take. So I'm wondering if people here have more information about that or know what I could help contribute to.
Yeah, so currently this, so there's a couple of initiatives that are underway. So Astrolabe is kind of our new way forward for working with snapshots of general things, including volumes, but also things besides volumes. So that's under the VMware-Tanzu/Astrolabe project. The specifically in terms of what we're doing there, we are going to have both cross-region movement and actual data movement so we can do cross-cloud. So I want to get all that stuff into those APIs and down there rather than doing like one-off solutions for the different cloud providers. We could consider doing something specifically for EBS, but then as you said, it doesn't work really well until we go into running all the snapshotters in parallel. And running those things in parallel is not something we're ready to do yet. It's really something that, I mean, there's ordering issues in terms of, when do the PVs become available, or when do we snapshot things on the other side, so that we have to do things in the right order. Also, there's going to be issues in some systems with the number of outstanding requests we can issue to the storage system. So we need to go through and do parallelism, but I'm not ready to just like put it in and see what happens, because the blowback is going to be ugly.
Yeah, the parallelism is actually something I encountered. So I'm testing with something like 100 stateful sets and just creating some dummy processes to scribble files to each of those volumes simultaneously, and then doing a scheduled backup every 15 minutes. So with the parallelism, you can complete all of the backups within 3 or 4 minutes, and it works fine. You do get some API rejections from AWS saying you have too many concurrent snapshot requests in flight, which is why I also had to amend it to, as I said, do API retries under certain conditions. If you do the retry, then it does work. So this is just very specific to the particular API calls that Amazon uses to do the snapshot replication across regions.
Yeah, each storage system has got its own set of funkiness there that we need to take care of. There's other things like we want to be able to do the ordering. In fact, it's been reported that the pre and post restore hooks are not pre and post backup hooks on the pods are not bookending the snapshotting and backups properly of the volumes. But that's something else that needs to happen, because there's applications where you need to do things like quiesce the application, snap the volumes, and then let it go. And so we want to be sure that we don't let it go until the snapshots are actually like taken. So that's some of the other issues with parallelism there. So it's not quite as easy as just saying, hey, let's do them all and then wait for them at the end.
Yeah, in the case of EBS, so I'm not currently waiting for the snapshot replication to complete, but I do need to wait for the source snapshotting to complete in order to initiate replication. I thought about having it also wait for the replication to complete. You could, it would add a little bit of time to the backup. I think that depends on, it doesn't seem to be necessary because the backup actually becomes usable immediately because of the way AWS implements the volume restore from snapshot. It does a lazy pull of blocks. Mm-hmm. So in that case, it seems to work as is, but yeah, certainly for different cloud providers, it would be very different. So.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we want to do, is kind of get the general model in there for this. So the parallelism, I hear you, it's an issue, but it's not an easy fix. And there's like a hierarchy of things that need to happen. So that's why we're kind of like putting it off until we understand it better and get a better overall design together.
And you said that would likely be happening in the Astrolabe repository?
Some stuff's going to happen in Astrolabe. Some stuff will happen in Velero. And the next move is to get things like data movement into Velero, which would then allow us to back up and restore snapshots across regions. So that'll probably wind up being sometime this summer if we're lucky to get all of that together.
Okay. All right. Are there tracking issues somewhere in Astrolabe that cover this sort of thing? Is that already filed or discoverable?
Most of the things are in the Velero project. I'm not sure if we've got an issue open on parallelism. Let's take a look.
I just want to make sure I'm following the right things. I'm not missing a major backlog entry or something.
Yeah, so there's 2888
in Velero.
Yeah, and Velero is backing up resources in parallel. I'll put it in the chat. But yeah, so we had some things there figuring out like ordered resources, concurrent resources.
Yeah, this is new to me.
I mean, there's definitely issues here, but there's also reasons why we're not just jumping right into it, because it's getting worse and worse. Like the ordering of restore resources on restore, as we get into the applications like operator driven things, we've had a lot of issues there just with ordering and making sure that everything gets restored in the right order, and that things don't go off and start creating new volumes, for example, because it's not quite ready, stuff like that.
Okay. I'll look through these things. It's good to know. And you said very roughly you're thinking on the timeline of summer for these sorts of things to be worked on.
Yeah, and we could definitely use some help working through the parallelism issues. So, but I think we need to work through them, kind of from a top-down way in terms of like, how do we get things running in parallel? We're going to be doing snapshots for things besides simply volumes, so that we'll be able to start snapshotting applications. And we're currently working on a project with Caston to implement their canister backup description language, I guess, and use that from Astrolabe and Velero. And that's going to, for example, that may call out and snapshot volumes. And so we need for that to be able to issue things in parallel, but then we need to be able to block at the right points, so that, for example, like a canister blueprint may snapshot 6 volumes. It can issue all of those in parallel, but then it would, like, for example, be doing a quiesce unquiesce, and it should be doing a quiesce. It can issue all the 6 snapshots in parallel, but it's going to have to wait for those 6 to at least come back to the point where the point in time is taken, and then unquiesce. If it unquiesces prematurely, you're going to get garbage.
And I guess that again depends on the cloud provider. So EBS is going to be, when you, as far as I can tell, when you make the API call, it takes a snapshot as of that point.
Yes.
But that
so once it returns to you, you're good.
RESTIC, for example. Yeah.
Right. So RESTIC, and we may be combined. Well, actually, we're going to try to combine RESTIC backups with, say, snapshots, so that we can take a snapshot then on systems that don't have data paths, like a generic CSI system. You need to clone and then attach the volume and then extract the data. But that can be done, in the background, because once the snapshot's taken, we have a consistent point in time. There's going to be other cases where we don't have a snapshotting mechanism at all, which is like the current case with RESTIC, where we have to wait for the RESTIC backup to complete before we can move forward with, at least with getting to the unquiesce of the application. But we should also be able to run snapshots of multiple applications in parallel, so that we don't have to go through serially each application. We can be quiescing multiples of them in parallel, but there's just a whole can of worms there.
Okay.
I don't know if you mentioned the fact that when the plugin will execute it will return an additional item to backup, and that will change the flow. And if we do things in parallel, such a thing will cause so much trouble if we do not do it carefully.
Okay. I think that's all for me. If you want to close this.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse, and welcome to the community.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Fong.
Yeah, so thank you, Jesse. Also, yesterday he bring out a very good point. Is we don't have a formal list of what's going into the plugin interface version 2. Right now, I only implementing, adding the context into the function. But what else should go with that version 2? I do not have any formal list yet. So should we start, creating that list, and we start adding it in the implementation, because now we have the feature branch, and this is the time to add in. If we need to add anything in, this is the time. So.
Yeah, so I think we should definitely be looking at the the various item actions: backup, restore, delete. Volume snapshotter is going to get obsoleted. So the item snapshot or API is the place to add anything that's missing. So we'll eventually obsolete volume snapshotter, but the item actions are going to remain.
Yeah, I know.
Should we create a list somewhere and we start editing?
Yeah. So there was another design proposal I know from Scott. Scott's on the call. So I know that he was I can't remember what it was, but I know that he needed to add another function to one of the item action.
Yeah, it was for restore item action.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was basically to allow items on restore to wait until. So we have the additional items that are returned, and then there's another call that was going to be added to the restore item action to call for an item to say, is this thing ready? So that would be kind of a new method added to the restore item action.
But yeah, I think to your point, Fong, about listing them all and getting them in this branch, I think that we can. My hope with the branch that we're currently working on is that getting the plugins ready to be versioned would be separate from any specific changes in the plugin APIs, which would require versioning.
Yeah, I think it would be confusing if we started adding new things to the, because basically we want a version of all of these plugins exactly as they exist now, but as a version 1 that is versioned. So that the first version supportable iteration of this changes nothing, and then after that's done, then we can put the version 2. I mean, we don't need a release with that, but what I mean is there needs to be that that version 1 in the code, so that when we add version 2, they're side by side. If we're calling the second one version 2, but I mean, so that you have. Basically, the first change that adds versioning doesn't change any of the specific interfaces. It's all there. And then once that's committed to main or the branch that we're working on, whatever, at that point, then you can add the version 2 to specific plugins types, restore item action, whatever, that will add whatever we think we need to add to the support, the first round of new features.
Yes, I think we can go through the branch that we currently have and try and see like what specifically from that we can, because I know that you mentioned you started adding some of the context, but maybe I think that's like really important to do from like a perspective of like making sure that the approach works and so on. But I think perhaps as part of that we can try and get the work that is specifically just rearranging the code into the new version format and get that in first, and then we can build upon the work of like adding the context and so on into each of the APIs and then actually versioning them. Because I think as long as it's all like, so I think whenever we all like initially discussed this, I think it was decided that we could have multiple changes go into a particular versioned API as long as it was all within like one release cycle. So for example, we could get the context working, but we don't necessarily need to get the changes that Scott wanted in with like the V2 commit of restore item action. So say we had a change for adding context, then we could have another change within, for example, the 1.8 time frame. And that could all go in under V2. And then it was only like at 1.9 when we would need to version it again.
How about this? Let's call a separate meeting when we walk through all the change that I have made so far into that feature branch, and then we will, if we need to split out the chain into 2 separate chains, we will do that during that meeting.
Okay.
Let's take offline. Maybe we can continue on Slack, And then I recommend that we have at least 1 or 2 hour, code walkthrough each of the change. That's so many.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So yeah, so we don't have to take off the meeting time with the team here.
Awesome, that sounds good. I'll maybe try.
Scott, are you also interested in that meeting or?
Yeah, that would be good. So
Okay, so we will try to schedule a meeting between three of us to walk through all the change, and you can also have comment and feedback on that. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll chat in Slack and set that up. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you all. All right. Does anyone have any other discussion topics that they want to bring up on the meeting today? No takers? All right, then let's dive into some contributor shoutouts. Got a few here. It's been a while since we did contributor shoutouts. I've been traveling and forgot to do them. And then we also, I was also on PTO last week. So now we have a few here. So this one, does anyone want to help me out with these ones? Bridget?
Yes, I can help with. I've seen some of these. I may not know the context and background of all of them, but I can help where I can here. So this is a change from Frankie. So there was a bug discovered with some recent changes that we've been making to use Cube Builder, where the Velero controllers were operating on Velero resources created outside of the Velero namespace. So this is a change to fix how we're using Cube Builder to only operate on the Velero namespace. So thank you very much, Frankie, for fixing that.
Yeah, I remember the discussion about this. It was a little strange. So good to have that fixed. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a change from Danfeng to update the 1.8 roadmap. So she's going to be focusing on some technical health work within Velero. So I think that was just adding the issue that's going to be tracking that. So thank you, Danfeng, for taking that work on. This is from Eleanor, updating the roadmap and what we're planning to do for 1.8. So that's the focus for the Velero team until kind of next year, early next
Tons
year.
of stuff. Super fun.
Sorry?
Tons of stuff.
Yes. So this is from Ergi Kame, of fixing the indentation within the Helm chart. I didn't review this one, but I'm guessing there was a bug that was, yeah, incorrect indentation. So making sure that that's fixed and that the chart deploys or applies the labels correctly. So thank you very much for fixing that. This is from David Sauer. Oh, I don't know what this one is. I specify custom volume for a scratch folder for Rustic. So I'm guessing this might just be some allowing it to be customized.
Yeah, this was for the Helm chart, right? So there's a scratch directory that Restic is using to write things into. And so this lets it specify a different one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that. Oh, is this looks like the same description?
Yes.
Oh, maybe there was something, maybe it was, there was something that was maybe missed out in one of the PRs. I haven't reviewed these, but maybe it was a follow-up or that was required. So I missed who had done that. Igor.
Yeah, this is a little strange.
Yeah.
No, I think I think there was a bug in that.
There was a bug. Yeah.
That's why the second one says fix up. Or the first,
Yeah.
the first one says fix up.
So this added it, and then this fixed it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you very much both for adding that and then making sure that it works correctly. So this is from Matthew. I think this was changing how I can't remember which parts of it, but I think it's some of the service ports or something, or
It's
container
the
ports.
Prometheus ports and how they're
Yeah.
named. And he added in the HTTP dash in there. And that's actually something that I wanted to bring back here, is because this only fixes the Helm chart.
Mhm.
So we use a completely different name when regular Velero install runs. So there was the question of, should this be something that we, is this the right fix? And should this be fixed here? But it got merged. So yeah.
So this will be different in like the service that gets generated if you do like Velero install. So it'll be
Yeah,
different.
it's named something else.
Yeah.
I think there was a comment I made on the pull request about that.
Ah,
Yes, the port is named metrics.
Yeah. So we should at least be consistent everywhere,
Yes.
because
Yeah, and they wanted to do a PR to the installer to make things consistent there.
right. Yeah, so we can make a note there that it's available.
Sounds good. And that was it. Yep, that was it.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for your contributions.
Thanks everyone, and thank you, Bridget and Dave, for jumping in here as well. So with that, thank you everyone for joining the Velero community meeting / open discussion today. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and see you all next week in Beijing time zone.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.